Hey everyone, it's Dan Goodstein with ERPA AI. Good to be with you today. Hope everyone is well. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining us for the case for outbound sales, how to multiply money using an SDR team. And, as I was mentioning to some of my colleagues earlier this week, we spend so much time doing content for the buyers of automation and AI and digital transformation. I've had a few people say to me recently, "Hey, where's the content series you guys used to do for the sales and marketing people and the technology companies and those sorts of things?" And so we decided to do this webinar mainly because so many of our provider members are struggling right now with sales, and there's a handful of reasons. This new normal and new ways of selling, new business models, evolving solutions, especially around AI. But I think the biggest challenge I hear day in and day out is a lack of lead flow, right? There's no events, there's no face-to-face meetings. Digital marketing either isn't working or isn't as effective. The list goes on, right? So I wanted to kind of let you all in on something that we've been doing at ERPA AI. We've been having a lot of success ourselves with leveraging SDR teams, and so I wanted to bring in an expert in this area. He's kind of the Wizard of Oz here, the man behind the curtain for our outreach teams and our membership services teams. And he's running several lead gen programs for ERPA AI members as well as others. So I've asked him to share some of his secrets and help us crack the code on outbound sales. Also, stick around to the end because we'll do a Q&A session, but we also have a special offer for anybody on the webinar today to kind of get started with some of this stuff. So stick around if you're looking for help. Andrew, I'm going to hand it over to you. Give us a little of your background and then help us out, please.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it. Can you still hear me, Dan?
Yes.
Still good. Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. I know everybody's busy. And as Dan said, I don't usually come out from behind the curtain, but he begged me to do it. So like here I am. Going to try to make a very simple case to you, the case for outbound sales, why you should be considering using outbound sales in your company. And the theory, my main sort of premise is that everybody thinks that they have a bottom of the funnel problem. I'm not closing enough sales. And my argument to you is actually you have a top of the funnel problem. That if you could 10x the number of quality sales conversations that you're having, the closes will take care of themselves. So let's do that. Let's go for the case for outbound sales. So let's start off here. Then as Dan said, we'll do some Q&A at the end. So step one, the webinar goal, as I just said, make a simple case here. I'm going to try to convince you that you should at the very least be seriously considering an outbound sales development function at your company if your product or service has a few simple characteristics that are predictive of a successful outbound sales program. And we'll go over those as we go. But first, who am I? Who's this guy on the screen? I've got a 23-year sales career, currently running inside sales team for up to 60 companies. And in all different industries, a lot of AI, a lot of software, but also, in CBD manufacturing, logistics consulting. So my teams will do on average, 30,000, 25, 30,000 sales activities a day. So you cannot get punched in the face 25,000 to 40,000 times a day and not learn something. So I'm managing over 110 reps. It's not the largest sales team in the world. There's definitely inside sales teams that are bigger, but I would imagine that it's bigger than most. So 110 SDRs. So I get to see a lot of different offers. I get to see a lot of different sales motions, and I get to see what's working and what's not. Again, mostly by being punched in the face. So it's not that I'm that smart, but if you do get punched in the face as much as I do, you will learn something. Okay, so let's first define our terms. You can see I'm a little bit older. I'm not like a millennial. I'm what they call Generation X. So when I started doing this was called inside sales. But now they have all these different terms for it: sales development, outbound sales, BDRs, SDRs. It's kind of confusing. I like to simplify stuff. So I'm going to let's define what we're talking about before we go any further. An inside sales or SDR function is having a dedicated human resource or human resources that are full or at least part-time engaged in messaging a cold market in an attempt to either set a sales meeting for an account executive or for themselves to close. So that's what we're talking about here. So if you're on the wrong webinar, you can jump off now. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so I just want to give you one stat to give you just a sense of the overall market for this. So LinkedIn does this. LinkedIn is one of the largest job platforms in the world. So they have a huge amount of data about what different jobs are trending on their platform. And right now they do this survey every year called Emerging Jobs. You can Google it, the Emerging Jobs report. And for the last 2 times they've done it, according to LinkedIn, the sales development role is I think the 7th fastest growing role in this survey. And that includes everything. That includes AI, that includes software coding, that includes everything. So why is that? My argument is going to be the reason why is because it's really valuable, obviously. So why is it so valuable? That's the reason we're going to go. So we're going to talk a little bit more about, but I wanted to give you a sense. This isn't just my opinion here. This is what LinkedIn is tracking with their data. That's not their opinion either. That's mathematics. So it's one of the top 10 fastest growing roles. And the reason is because people are multiplying money using it. You wouldn't hire a bunch of sales development reps if you were losing money doing it. The beautiful thing about sales and marketing in general is that it's all trackable. Like I can't tell you how valuable my graphic designer is to the dollar in my company, but I can tell you every sales rep, and I can tell you to the dollar how much we pay them, how much they bring in. Very easy. So I'm going to give you one example in specific. So that was the sort of large piece of it, the market. I want to give you one successful company that give you a sense of the power of this. Thank you, Jimmy. Company called Zenefits. You've probably heard of them. I could choose 100, 1,000 different examples, but Zenefits is something you guys have probably heard of. And I'll put a link here, and we will send this presentation to everybody so you can check this out. But basically, they did what I'm going to argue that you should do. They hired a rep or 2, maybe 3. They created an investment hypothesis. Hey, if I give this sales rep money in the form of salary and commission, what will happen? And what they found was that, hey, they bring back more money than I gave them. So they came up with this interesting little hypothesis. They tested it with a couple of reps. Then they went to venture capitalists and they said, we have this really interesting sales motion that we're doing right now, and it's bringing in a lot more money than we're putting into it. So they raised a bunch of tens of millions of dollars. And in 1 year, they went from the 1 or 2 reps to 100 reps. And very shortly, they 20x the company with this tactic alone. So that's one example. Again, I could give you hundreds of examples, and I can see it in my clients. Same results. When this works, it is literally multiplying money. So all you got to do if you're multiplying money is get more money. In fact, there's a very famous SaaS podcast called the Latka podcast. Very interesting. If you guys are in software, you might want to check this guy out, Nathan Latka. He's a sort of a young private equity guy. And he's always asking people, he asks people very specific information about their cost to acquire, very specific details about their company. One thing he's always saying, if anybody ever comes to him and they say, he's saying, how do you grow your company? He says, well, I do SEO. He's like, I can't invest in you. And they're like, why not? I grow profitably with SEO. He's like, because you don't have a thesis of how you can take $1 and make 2. He's like, I need you to be able to advertise or create a sales staff, because that way you're telling me I can take $1, put it in the top, and turn it into more dollars. I'm a private equity guy. I can give you more dollars. That's awesome. But if you have this random sort of lumpy inbound thing, how do you scale that? I mean, there's only so many people searching for your thing. It's not that predictable. So it's really interesting in terms of valuation from a guy who buys companies and therefore obviously values companies. Okay, so the other piece I wanted to mention in my argument to you is it outbound versus or outbound plus. I'm not arguing outbound versus. So I'm not saying, hey, you should drop your direct mail program, or you should drop your events program, or you should drop your SEO, or you should drop your Facebook ads or anything like that. I'm saying you should add outbound sales. And the reason is because if you're in a growth perspective, if you're in a growth position at your company, either you're the VP of sales, you're the CEO, whatever, your job, I would argue, is to test and find as many profitable channels to grow your company as possible, even if some of them are more profitable than others. And I'll give you one good example as a way of presenting this. I would say a couple years ago, a lot of people were using events to grow their company, right? There were really profitable events. A lot of people in tech were using events. They were meeting and greeting. And then Somebody ate a bat in China and got on a boat 18 months ago. If that was the story at that point, we don't really know what really happened, but that's what happened. And then the event business literally disappeared, went away. So this channel that was profitable died. Now, people that had that as their only channel, meaning the one way that they were growing their company, were in a world of hurt. But if you had 7 or 8 different channels, okay, you were okay. You were less likely to be in a lot of pain there. So I would say the worst number in business is 1, having only one channel that's effective, having only one sales rep, only one client. You want diversity. Diversity is strength here. The more channels you can do profitably, the better. And I'm here to argue that you should test outbound as one of those channels. So that's my only task here. Again, not versus, plus, outbound plus other channels. Now let's talk about the success factors, because this isn't going to work for everybody. So there's 4 factors that I've created here. There's probably more, but these are the most important that we see over and over and over again, because we're bringing on a bunch of new clients every month, and they're always, sometimes we have to turn people away because they fail in one of these 3 things. The first one, and most important, is high LTV, high lifetime value. So I've got a couple friends, they're in the SaaS business. They have like $20 a month SaaS products, and they cannot do outreach. They cannot grow their company very effectively because they don't make enough money. Bottom line, they do not have the lifetime value to justify human labor on the outbound side. Simple as that. So the more money you make, the more you can spend to get that person. So I would say, just to give you guys a benchmark, I would say 20,000 as a minimum. We'll go to like 10, but 20,000 or more lifetime value is the minimum that you need. So that's the first one, high LTV. Second one, large total addressable market. Peter Thiel has this company called Palantir, and Palantir is a company that he founded after PayPal. They basically work with the CIA and the NSA, and they God knows what they do for them, but like they cannot work with everybody. They have a very small total addressable market. If you have a very small total addressable market, you should just go try to meet those people in person. That's it. But if you have a large total addressable market, then outbound sales can work for you. Just to give you a sense, our reps on average will work through 350 to 500 contacts on a monthly basis. That should give you a sense of how large a total addressable market you need. So you're probably going to need to recycle that at least once a year. So you can hit everybody for 1 year. You could probably reach out to the same market again, but the more the merrier. The larger the people, the larger your market, the better you're going to be. Third, differentiated offer. So I call you up, I say, hey, Dan, I do SEO. Dan says, yeah, you and everybody else that hits me up on my email junk folder every single day. Not interested, click, hang up. Differentiated offers mean that you have something that's going to get attention, because that's what outbound sales, and in fact, all marketing is trying to do, is get attention. It's a very rare resource. In fact, some people are arguing we're in the attention economy. It's the most valuable thing, to get the attention of buyers. In order to do that, you have to have a very differentiated offer. And what you need to have a differentiated offer means you have to understand the conversations that are going on in your prospects' minds and how your product or service solves that problem for them. And you have to be able to do that in a very short period of time. That's the art of outbound outreach, because you don't have very much time or attention for those prospects. So you better have a good offer to get your foot in the door. So differentiated offer. And then the fourth, reachable market. So if you're calling restaurants and you're calling the waitress with the plate of buffalo wings in one hand and her cell phone on the other, it's really difficult to schedule a meeting with that person to make a demo, because she's off, she's not focused, she's not sitting in front of her computer, she doesn't have Google Calendar, and if you set a meeting with her, she won't show up. Same with the guy on the roof with his cell phone banging a nail in a roof. Not a great person to set a meeting with. So the small business market in that way is very difficult. What you want is people sitting at desks with phones and staring at computer screens, making their eyes bloodshot all the time. That's what you want, because those people, they have Google Calendar. You can get on their calendar and meet with them. So those are the 4 different success factors that I would say, if you fit, then outbound is hypothetically really good thing to test. Whoops, sorry, I went a couple back. Okay, I hit double. So let's talk about what exactly we're talking about. Let's get more specific. Let's go drill down even more, because What outbound sales actually is, I would argue, is a sales activity game. You're in the business, if you're going to do this, of buying sales activities and attempting to monetize those sales activities at a rate higher than you paid for them. That sounds a little strange. So let's break it down and let's use an example of the picture here. Sandra, the sales rep. Let's say Sandra, the sales rep, costs you $7K a month. It's probably going to be more if you count everything, but it depends on where you are in the world. Get it. So, but let's just use the figure set. It's an average figure. So 7K a month. Sandra does 150 sales activities a day. What is a sales activity? Okay. Sales reps will try to, let's just say, broaden this definition. Hey, Andrew, I was researching a prospect. Yeah, that's not a sales activity. Hey, Andrew, I was thinking really hard. That's not a sales activity. Hey, Andrew, I was walking down the street and I was reading a newspaper about sales. That is not a sales activity, okay? Sales activities mean a phone call. You reached out to the prospect and you tried to set a meeting. That's a sales activity. Email. You sent an email to somebody soliciting them. That is a sales activity, not thought, activity. And the third, LinkedIn. Those are sales activities. So let's say you can get Sandra to do 150 sales activities in a day. Let's just say that's on average what she's going to do. And let's say from those sales activities, Sandra generates 2 leads a day. So, and let's say for every lead that she gets a meeting to sit for every lead she generates. So a lead would be somebody that would give her an email address for a white paper or case study. And for every 4 people that will do that, 1 will actually sit. And let's say Sandra is setting meetings for AE Andre. And let's say Andre closes 1 in every 5 meetings that Sandra sets. So let's talk about the math. Let's get away from the words and let's talk about mathematics. We're all in the mathematics game. $2.33 sales activities buys you leads if Sandra is your rep at $175. That's somebody reaching out saying I'll take an email, buying you $700 sales meetings and $3,500 customers. So let's go back to the beginning. Can you make money if you're buying customers at $3,500? So obviously, if you make less than $3,500, no, you cannot. You should not do sales activities. Go back to start. You should not do this. If you make $70,000 a deal, you would love to buy $70,000 for $3,500. The only thing you would ask is, how many more $70,000 can I buy? Like, how many more dollars can I throw into that? You would do what Zenefits is doing. How many more reps can I get in this year? Can I get to 100 reps? Can I get to 200 before this math breaks down? So I wanted to give you a sense just of how the VC world, the funding world looks. This guy, David Skok, who I highly recommend you check out his blog. He's very interesting. He's a South African venture capitalist. And he talks about, he does only B2B SaaS. And he says your cost to acquire, that's CAC, under 12 months is acceptable. So for example, if you're making $2,000 a month on a customer, he's happy if you're paying about $24,000 or less to buy that customer. Anything more is too much, but less is fine. So that's in B2B SaaS. That means if you can figure out a way, if you're in SaaS, if you're in any kind of, you could go to him and say, I'm acquiring customers for half of a year for, let's say, 6 months of my monthly fee, and I'm keeping them for 36 months. You will be able to raise money from this guy. So 12 months or less, you're in the game. You're doing well. So hopefully that's understandable. Again, we're going to be around for questions. If I went too fast, I'm just trying to get the information in your heads. Again, we'll send this to you, and happy to take any questions at the end as well. So if this is a little confusing, I know I'm going fast, but basically I was trying to show you guys the actual algorithm here. Whoops. And that's the conclusion. So that's really it. At the end of the day, outbound should be tested if your offer has all the box checked that we went over. You should be testing this. And what I would say to you before we go to the Q&A is that you guys are all smart. Do not overcomplicate this. This is not rocket science. Hire somebody or hire a firm to do it. Get a script in their hands and start punching. Everybody has a strategy until they get punched in the face. So get out there and start getting punched in the face. Start figuring out what works. It will be really helpful for you. And you will figure out, okay, what is my cost per sales activity? Meaning, what am I paying the rep? How many activities are they going to do on a daily basis? How many leads are they generating from those activities? How many of those leads are turning into meetings? And then how many of those meetings are turning into deals? And then of course, you should hopefully know what is your um, your lifetime value. What I will say also is that if you are used to closing deals at a high rate, so every time I talk to people, I say to you, oh, hey Dan, how many meetings do you close a deal? So if you have 10 meetings, how many deals you're going to close? Dan's going to say to me, I close 50% of the people I talk to. That might be true in the world of referrals. That might be true in the world of, somebody who knows somebody. This is cold outbound. Your closing rate will go down. So just keep that in mind as a little pro tip, that you're going to have to probably generate more meetings on the outbound side to get it to work. That's the downside. The upside is that it's infinitely scalable. It's only held back by the size of your market. So if you have a big market and you can get this to work in a small subset, it stands to reason that it will work in the larger subset. That was what Zenefits figured out, and that's the game. So Dan, I'm going to pass it back to you. And thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully that was helpful to you guys.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, I know it was. And every time I talk to you, I learned something new. I think I've got it all figured out, and then I learned something new. But you bring up a great point around the referrals. I speak to a lot of people, that are assuming that they're going to get the same lead to close ratio that they've always been getting when they get past that, basic referral word of mouth business. And then they go the opposite direction and they're getting less than 1%. And so they say, oh, this doesn't work, right? So that's a good expectation to set. We're
Yep.
going to do a Q&A with Andrew. I've got some questions. I know there's some audience members sending in some questions. So if you have a question, use the question and answer box on the GoToWebinar panel. And Andrew's we're gonna make him. This is live. We're gonna make him share some secret sauce here. Yeah, we're gonna
One thing
make
I
him.
want to say, Dan, can I say one thing before we take
Yeah,
questions?
please.
I forgot my one analogy. The one thing that's also important, even if this fails, you win. And the analogy, and I told this Dan the other day, it's like there was this race to find the Titanic between different countries. So they had the U.S. team, they had the French team, they had all these different teams, and they were kind of this friendly competition to see who could find the Titanic. And the U.S. team ultimately found it. And when they were at the press conference, they actually thanked the French team because the French team did something very valuable. The French team found where the Titanic wasn't. And that was really valuable because then if you know where it isn't, you don't have to look. So if you try this and it doesn't work, at least you know it doesn't work, and that's really valuable. It's also good information. Your job is to test. Always be testing. Not everything is going to work. Feed the lions, kill the lambs, rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And I think the issue is about the risk, right? The risk of doing something, right? But what we wanted to do here, and before we jump into the Q&A, is I promised a kind of a special offer for our members. So, if you're looking to figure this out on your own, that's fine. We're happy to help. Happy to give you the some of the ROI math and things that Andrew has been talking about. But if you're looking for some help and you're looking to maybe outsource this, we wanted to make it really easy and risk-free. So I just like I begged Andrew to do this session, I also begged him to work with us on some special kind of pricing and things for our members. So we have two offers that make it really risk-free and easy to get started if you want to embark on this. The first is if you target the RPA, the AI, the digital transformation, or even the outsourcing space. I think most of you know we also have an outsourcing institute. We have a sales channel program where we reach out as ERPA AI to targeted members who are predisposed to the things that you're selling. They're coming to us for advice and connections already. And we find the clients who are the best fit for your offerings and recommend that they speak with you about solving their problems. This is something we've started doing. It's normally an annual program. It's a six-figure type of program, requires a marketing subscription and a kind of 4-month pilot. But we want to get more of our provider members in the mix for this program, and so we can do more and more matchmaking with our members in lieu of events. So we're going to do something kind of wild and crazy, at least for us, and we're offering a 60-day pilot and then month to month from there, just to lower the risk of getting started and make sure it's a good fit for you. Andrew's got his criteria. We've got a couple other criteria that we use to make sure that we're recommending and repping an organization that is kind of meets muster and is differentiated enough in the automation and AI space. But assuming you are, this program could be a really good fit. The second offer is if you're looking more for an outsourced SDR team outside of IRPA's network, and you're looking for people to reach out, as your organization, either to cold leads or leads that you have already kind of sourced. Andrew's team can help you. They can do the research. They can target your ideal customer, and I think you have a deal for them as well, Andrew. Yes.
Yeah, exactly what you said, Dan. Most of the time we're able to make it work. So we wouldn't take you if we didn't think we could make it work. So that's it then. Yeah, that's the deal.
Yeah, and we've had success with Andrew and his team. Obviously, that's why we're here. I'll also say, we've worked with a lot of SDR firms as an association over the years, and finding the right combination of aggressive but not obnoxious is always a
Yeah.
tricky intersection. And Andrew, your team has definitely cracked the code. The other thing I would say is there's a lot of organizations out there, and if any of you are listening. I apologize and recommend that you change the way you operate. There's a lot of organizations out there that will charge for the meeting. And the challenge with just charging only for the meeting is that it incents the wrong behavior, right? So we've been through a lot of organizations over the years, and even employees over the years that they'd book a million meetings, but none of them were really qualified, right? And so it feels good for a minute, but then you realize it's actually the worst of all worlds because now there's a cost and a time and an effort in dealing with all those unqualified leads, in addition to paying those fees. And then at the end of the day, you're not anywhere better than where you started. So, if you're looking at an SDR firm, I would suggest you look at one with a more holistic model where, they win when you win, right? Okay. I have some questions here, Andrew. You ready?
Let's do it, man. Hit me.
So the first question, I'm going to try to go to Rakesh first. I think he was the first one to come in. The question is it better to outsource or build an in-house SDR team? Now, obviously, Andrew's biased, but what are the pros and cons, at least
Uh,
from your standpoint, Andrew?
yeah, that's like saying, is it better to be a Jew or a Christian or a Hindu? It sort of depends. It's a difficult question to answer.
That's a different webinar, Andrew.
Yeah,
Don't
right.
go
It's a whole
there.
different webinar. But the answer is actually it always, unfortunately, Rakesh, it depends. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. I'll go over really quickly what the advantages of doing it in-house is kind of like the advantages of being vertically integrated. Like you control it. You control it much more. You're gonna bring somebody in. It's gonna be painful to work with them because it is an sort of an entry level role. It's a difficult role. It's emotionally difficult to go into work every day and get punched in the face 150 times. It sounds fun. It's actually not very much fun. That's how I started the business. I did this myself. I've made hundreds of thousands of cold calls and it's terrible. So people don't like it and there's no reason to like it for the most part. So you're going to have a lot of churn, but that's the downside. The upside is you'll learn how to do it. You will have the IP in-house and you will be able to sift and sort people through and get them and the best inside sales reps will ultimately become closers. So that's the upside of doing it internally is that you're going to have a career path, and that's on the other side of the ledger. The downside is that you're going to be in a lot of pain for a long time figuring it out. The upside of going outsourced is that, as I said, we're doing this for like all different companies. So you're hitting the ground running. I can get you up and running with a quality rep within a couple of weeks, 5 days, and that rep and if that rep doesn't work out, I'm gonna handle changing them. The other thing is that so we have all this IP built up. I mean, we've done nothing but this for 3 years. So I know what tools to use. I know what kind of scripts to use. I know how to make offers interesting. I know what offers aren't interesting. I know when I hear a bad offer. It's like one of those things I can just wake up. You can wake me up in the middle of the night and pitch me something, and I can be like, that offer stinks. Just let me go back to bed. I know it because I know it, and I forget the word in German, but it's like finger feel because I do it all the time. So that's the upside of going to the outsourced side. Another downside on the outsourced side is that you're paying a margin to an agency to do it. So, you know, that's gonna, it is, if you hired the same person that they hired, you would pay less because you're not paying you're not paying their margin. So is it worth it? It sort of depends on what your goals are. Some people come to me and they say, hey, I want to do this for a while. I want you to teach me how to do it. And then after 6 months, I'm going to fire you and do it internally. I just want the IP. I want the sort of shove off and then I'm going. Other people come and they say, hey, man, I've tried this. It's terrible. I hate it. My life is miserable when I do it. My wife won't talk to me because I'm in a bad mood all the time. And I just want you to do it for me. And so we do it. And if we're successful, he's like, thank you for doing it for me because now I don't have to deal with this. All I want from you is I want to write you a check and I want enough good meetings on the other side of that check that I'm willing to write you another check next month. That's all I care about. I
Mhm.
don't care how you do it. I don't care what country you do it from. I don't care. If the meetings are good and they show up on my calendar, that's all I want. I want to work on product and I want to work on other things. So it's really it's a question of focus and it's a question of like, is the pain worth it? Hopefully that's helpful, Rakesh.
Yeah, and I would add, Rakesh, that there's, I think a lot of people on our network understand the value of outsourcing and getting somebody, who's an expert at it. But I would also say, and we've been through this at IRPA, don't underestimate the challenge of scaling that. Even if you get a team in house that's doing a decent job, scaling that is very challenging. And the management and training costs and effort that was required to do that is significant. So somebody leaves, and it's not just that, right? It's things change, right? So the calling technology changes, the CRM platform changes, the LinkedIn changes their policy about what you can do. I know Andrew's team's been working on stuff. So unless you're going to be an expert in all of those things, it's very difficult to manage the change that's going to happen. You get everything working, and then things change. So that's one of the lessons learned for me.
Great
Next
question.
question.
That
Yeah, good
is the
question.
question, by the way. It's a great question.
Andrew Elliott wants to know, should SDRs sit within marketing or sales?
That's also kind of a religious question. It depends who you ask. I'm not sure. It's like in general, there's this constant war between sales and marketing, as everybody knows. Sales guys and gals will say to marketing, your leads and meetings are terrible, and marketing will say to sales, no, you just can't close. So it's sort of like in this function, we kind of exist in the middle. So and that's the way I really think about it. We're actually a third thing. We're kind of part sales and we're part marketing. So it's sort of like, what do you call it? I don't know. It's like half of one, half like two, half dozen of the other, whatever. So I, I don't like in our world, I can tell you what our clients usually do. It's usually in the sales world. It's usually not in marketing because it actually takes a lead all the way to a meeting, a sales qualified opportunity. Therefore, most people put it under the sales team. But if you ask me, it's kind of both end. So it really up to you. From the marketing side, it also depends a little bit on, are your SDRs taking inbound inquiries or are they going all outbound? In general, we don't work with anybody that gives us leads internally. We are the guys and girls that leave the castle in the morning with sharp sticks going to find food for that night. All from, and we're going to go out there, we're going to find the animal, we're going to stalk it, kill it, bring it back. So like, soup to nuts. Is that a sales or marketing function? It's both. So hopefully that's
Yeah,
helpful.
I would answer it slightly differently. I would say the short answer is it's sales, but I would say a better answer is whoever it should sit where whoever is responsible for revenue generation,
Yeah,
which is a
that's a
trick
good answer,
question,
Dan. Even better.
right? So if your marketing is disjointed and they don't really have revenue goals, then that would be a disaster,
Yeah,
right? To put it there.
that's a
Then
great
you work
point,
for
Dan.
sales.
That's a great point because it does depend on, is your marketing branding? Are you like Coca-Cola that just wants enough eyeballs on Coca-Cola? They're not really it's not really revenue based. We're direct marketers. We're like scientists. We're put money in, need money out. Not like, hey, we're gonna get our brand out there. So if your marketing team's all brand people, hey, God bless, that's awesome, but that's not our thing. We're numbers. We did this many sales activities. We got this many leads. Now those are marketing numbers, but it's it's not branding. We're out there trying to get
Right.
meetings and get sales. So it's kind of like, I guess I would agree with Dan that it's ultimately a sales function, but it looks a lot like marketing.
Yeah, and on the other side of that coin, I've seen a few organizations, not as many, but I've seen a few organizations where there's marketing people who are actually responsible for and even incented to generate revenue. And in those situations, marketing is great because everyone's on the same team. And I've seen the opposite happen where marketing will say, hey, these sales reps aren't working out, but let's switch them out because these are good leads and I want you guys to be successful, right? So
Exactly.
ideally, you get both.
Yeah. So the other thing about that, Elliot, is that in general, marketing people are not used to managing actual reps doing outbound. That's not like usually they're doing like paid, paid search or whatever. Like they're doing other stuff. This is like you have to really watch these people. Like these people, my reps. I mean, I have to I'm more like a school. I'm like a principal at a school. I'm walking around with my ruler, being like, no, 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 that's cheating, son. Like no, sorry, like you're not. That's right, because nobody wants to do this work. So you really have to watch it like a hawk and make sure and check. Did you really make 150 calls today, or did you like sit on a Skype or sit on your phone and dial 100 times out and just hang up because you were like whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and marketing people in general, they're like that's not a management function that they're used to.
Yeah, yeah. Andrew, I've got a question here from Keith. I'm going to try to
Hey Keith,
it's a long one, but it's a good
hit
one.
it.
I want to make sure we address it. So he's saying we've tried outbound telesales, not had much success. He feels that the challenges were, and I guess they're in RPA automation development. That was the telemarketers didn't understand the offering. The buyers were too senior to reach or to get the messaging. They weren't getting good feedback on what the objections were that were coming back. So he wants to know if there's any suggestions for making this work within the automation space. I'll let you
I
go first, and then I'll
Yeah,
jump in.
yeah. I would need to hear what your offer was, Keith, because like people come to me with scripts that are again that are terrible. So you could have had a terrible script. I mean, when you're diagnosing a problem in outbound, you have to diagnose it in different stages of the funnel. So for example, like, is it a list problem? So you have a bad list. You cannot sell burgers to vegans. So if you give me a list of all vegans and try to get me selling burgers, I'm gonna fail. So the list has got to be on point. It's a huge input. Number two, okay, connection rate. Can we get a hold of people? So for us, a successful project looks like a connection rate of between 2.5% to 5%. So that means that I'll just give you guys a sample, like a successful program for us would be we're going to make 100 dials. We're going to get a hold of 2.5 to 5 people. Of those, 20 to 30% will take an email, and of those, 1 in 5 will sit for a meeting. Rinse and repeat. That's what a successful project looks like. So you have to break it down in your funnel. What was the list like? My sense is that your offer wasn't very good. And the other thing that it said, just Keith, so I'm happy to hear your offer and help you think through it. I mean, that's up to Dan if we want to go there, but I'm happy to listen to your offer and give you some sense. It's like a whole nother webinar on offers we could do, but because it's really important. The other thing I would say from what you said, Keith, is that sometimes everyone's like, I only want meetings with the CEO. And it's like, yeah, and I want to be the king of England and I want my hair back. Like, I get it. Yeah, like everybody wants that, but like, let's be realistic. Like, what's actually possible? As they say in politics, politics is the art of the possible. It's not some dream that you get to do anything you want. Sales is also the art of the possible. So if you're calling big organizations and you can't get the CEO, but you can get a VP of sales on the line or a VP of product, start with that guy. Have a meeting with that guy. Let's grab on somewhere in the organization and sell up. Let's get some. You can have deals. We did a deal with last year with Chevron. Closed a deal in Chevron, and like we didn't start with the CEO of Chevron. Like it's not going to happen. You're not going to get that guy on the phone. It's just not going to happen. So be realistic with your goals. But Keith, it sounds like you have an offer problem actually. If I were to like sort of spot diagnose it. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, yeah, that's great. That's great. No, I would say a couple of things. You mentioned the pitch, Andrew. So, we're pretty good at the automation messaging stuff. We do a lot of marketing in the automation space, as many people know. But the pitch is slightly different, right? So, we had an organization that we've been working on with together, where we had the messaging. We thought it was differentiated. We thought it was unique. The campaign was running fairly well, but I could just tell there was something missing. I thought it should be better. I showed it to Andrew. He said, "Oh yeah, you got to change this. You got to do this. You got to put this on the right." And then overnight, I mean, almost overnight, we started doubling the amount of leads that came out of it. And we were leading with, in case this helps, Keith, we were leading more with the outcome and the solution than the technology
Yeah,
in that
that
particular case. So that helps. But the other point that Andrew you made is, listen, if you're doing cold outreach, it's cold outreach. But one of the advantages that we've had, I think, with the ERPA AI programs that we're running, is we're not actually doing cold outreach. We're doing kind of warm outreach to people that are predisposed to automation. So there's nobody on our network that's not at least thinking about automating if they're not already automating. And so Andrew had an analogy. The analogy that one of my old sales mentors always said was, it's really difficult to sell religion to someone, I'm sorry, to sell a Bible to somebody who's not religious, right? Ideally, you want to sell Bibles to someone who's already religious. Otherwise, you got to do a double sales cycle. So, when we do our campaigns, we're only reaching out to people that are predisposed to automation. Otherwise, you have to sell the benefits of automation, and then you got to sell the benefits of your solution, and so on and so forth.
right.
The
Yeah.
last piece I would say
Go ahead.
is, and Andrew, you can chime in on this too, is different industries and different solutions. I should say, different channels of outreach work better for certain industries and certain solutions. So, we have campaigns running where LinkedIn is working better than calling, and email is working better than, right? So it depends a little bit on the industry. And so, one of the pieces of advice I would have, whether you do it in house or you work with us or Andrew or somebody else, is you don't want to just do calling alone. You want to do a multi-channel outreach.
100%. 100%. And Dan's point about the offer is key. The bias that everybody has who's trying to sell something is they want to sell features. Look, I've tried, because you guys are all digging into product your whole lives, right? This is what you care about, is your product. So you want to run and talk to somebody about your product, and they don't care. They care about solutions to their problems. They don't want to buy hammers. They want to buy, they don't want to buy like shovels. They want to buy holes. They want the solution to, you got to make it live in their world and what they care about. It can't be about what you do and how, nobody cares about you. Sorry. Like, wake up, like that's the reality of this world. Like, they care about themselves, what's in it for them. So your whole thought process about your offer should be about, what does this person care about? And assume, if you learn nothing else in this webinar, assume they don't care about you and your product. Make that assumption. So you have to start from there, and then you'll come up with a better thought process at the very least.
And so, Andrew, stay there for a second, because the next question is from somebody who actually is an SDR. They're new to sales. They're trying to call prospects, but they're hanging up before they even get past hello, and they're saying that they're not interested. So any recommendations for how to start and how to engage somebody right off the bat?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, that's like, welcome to sales development. That will happen. It doesn't mean, it's mostly actually an emotional thing. Like, you just have to live, like, the powerful thing you'll learn in sales development over time is that no can't stop you. And if you think about it, like, no stops everybody in their lives at some point. Like, it stops everybody going after their dreams. They're like afraid of hearing no. And what happens is, if you hear no like 100,000 times or 200,000 times, you get over it. That's the first thing I would say. It's an emotional piece. So maybe you're new at it and you just got to get over it. It's like, I play guitar, and at some point you got to get calluses on your fingers. And before you have calluses on your fingers, it's going to hurt. There's no way around it not hurting. Like, you have to get those calluses, and you have to feel the pain to get them. No way around it. Sorry. Welcome to you're a big boy. Welcome to the world of like big boys and girls. So the other thing I would say is, the first thing to do is just get right to the point. Don't, if you're doing this whole thing of like, hey, Dan, I hear you like the Eagles. Like, how's the weather over there? I mean, like, nobody cares. Like, get right to the point. Be professional. Hi, my name's Andrew Jacoby. I'm calling from X. We help people like you do Y. Just get right to the point. No intro, just dive right in. I hear so many people do all these funky like openings and trying to get friendly with the people and all these sales techniques. Just they don't want to be talking to you. So do them the favor of being a pro. Just get to the reason why you're stealing, you're sort of like interrupting their day. Get to the benefit as soon as possible for talking to you more. The goal of the call is only to get them to give you the email address or the meeting. We go for an email address up front, because it's an easier ask. And that's what they're going to say anyway. What is the result of every sales call? The result of every sales call is, hey, Andrew, send me some more information. So we just assume that that's going to be the result. And we go for that result because it's an easier result. It's gentle. And that doesn't mean we're not going to go to try to get the meeting. We're going to try to do that afterwards. So it's really about number one, get over yourself. It's going to be emotionally difficult. If you don't want to do that, go be a, I don't know, go be a trapeze artist or something else. Number one. So you're playing, it's like saying, how do I be a boxer without getting punched? Hard to do. Number two, go right to the point. No nonsense about talking about the weather or anything like that. Get right to the point and get immediately, third point, to the benefit for them. Not about you, the benefit for them. We help people like you. Boom. Do what?
Yep. Yeah, I would add, yeah, I agree. I would say credibility and authenticity right from the beginning, right, as much as you can. And then it's a numbers game, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you are in the U.S., but it's a baseball analogy, right? The best hitters in baseball, they hit 3 out of 10, right? 2 out of 10. So, and you mentioned the getting punched a lot, right? I mean, we have pretty good meeting rates, when we're calling to members, but we're calling to members. If you're calling cold, I mean, you could be what, Andrew, 100 calls till you get a meeting. What are you guys
Oh
typically
yeah, yeah.
seeing?
It could be all over. Look, we have people that are getting meetings. It's all over the map. The question is, whatever it is, you try to optimize. Once you have your sort of control, you try to, like in direct marketing, what you're always trying to do is you whatever your best ideas are now, benchmark those. Say, okay, when I do this methodology, what do I get? What is my meetings costing me? What are my leads costing me? What are my closes costing me? And then keep that, because at least it's working to some degree, and test other ideas against it. Always be testing against that control. What if we tried this? What if we focused on that instead? What if we did that? What if we called, right? Like always to be trying to make variations and doing tests to see if you can beat your control. It's basic direct marketing principles.
Andrew, next question is from Jeff. Jeff wants to know, how do you scale account executive and SDR pods? How do you scale up?
Great question. Basically, it depends. Again, I'm sorry. Every one of my answers is it depends. We have some clients that have 8 SDRs to 1 AE. That's because they're targeting really big enterprises, and they just need they need that many. The meetings are hard enough to get that they need a lot of firepower to keep their AEs busy. We have other people where they're calling on smaller companies. One SDR can get a meeting or two a day. So like they might have 2 SDRs per AE. So it really depends upon what is what the goal is, always to be maximizing your AE's time. Our ideal world is the AE does nothing except in ideal utopia, your AE sits in a desk and only is either having a first call with a good prospect or a follow-up call to try to close business. They're not sending emails back and forth, and they have a ring around them of SDRs that, let's say SDR A brings me a meeting. I go have that meeting, and then after the meeting, I say, hey, Jimmy, go send Dan, this and that, whatever follow-up material. I'm on to my next call. And go set a meeting with Dan for another week or a week and a half. Go try to, you're always sending that SDR back to the world to try to do the next step, the next meeting. And the AEs, their time is maximized. So the question is, you have to do this testing. I can't answer this question for you. You have to do the testing. How many SDRs do you need to have an ideal pod per each AE? And then once you have that, create another pod. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 8. Depends.
Yeah, that's a great point. I cannot believe actually how many organizations are set up, I think, the wrong way from a sales standpoint. And what I've found is that it's very unlikely. Of course, there's unicorns like anything else, but it's very unlikely that you have a person within the organization that's good at finding leads, also good at qualifying leads, also good at developing leads, and also good at closing leads. And
Yeah,
it's
never.
amazing to me, right? And it's amazing to me how many organizations have one person do all of those things, instead of separating it out into pieces. And so the analogy, just to stick with the analogy stuff today, the analogy, obviously, you go to a doctor's office, right? The doctor's not checking you in. They're not taking your blood pressure. They're not handling your insurance work, right? They've broken that process And my doctor's not really a good example of efficiency, so maybe it's a bad analogy. But you go to a doctor's office, they've segmented the entire process, right? You walk in, you deal with one, right? Next person, next person, next person, next person, so that everybody's maximized in what they do.
Yeah.
And so that's what you want to do with sales.
Yeah, Dan is a great. I heard there's a great New Yorker cartoon about that. It says, "Well, I have an appointment with Dr. Smith at 2 o'clock," and she says, "Oh yeah, well, Dr. Smith has an appointment with you at 3 o'clock. So sit down." Right?
I love it. I love it. All
Yeah.
right, we got time for maybe one or two more. So we have a question here, Andrew. I think you maybe alluded to this before, but help give us a sense of when you look at your reps, what's the benchmark for an ideal day of activity, maybe in the B2B IT world, if you want to be specific around how much activity, calls, emails, what else?
Right. Really important. We break down, and this is what we learned over time. We break down the same way that Dan just mentioned with the doctors. We break down data work and outreach work. So for us, we have reps that all they don't do any outreach. All they do is research lists and make sure the lists are good. So that's what we do. We have a rep that only does that. So that the reason we do that is because I want my best reps only doing outreach. So if they're strong, I want them only doing sales activities. And what you will find, the bias with all reps, most reps, what you'll find, except for the very cream of the crop, you want to find the ones that are motivated to close, to like get to win. But the ones that aren't, you'll know because they'll try to expand the definition of what is a sales activity. Like, oh, I was on social media liking posts. I don't care. That's not a sales act. Liking somebody's post, that doesn't help me. Like, I need a meeting. How is liking I don't like talk. Maybe that is in some world a sales activity. So I would say we require a minimum right now, minimum of 200 to 250 activities a day. Does it mean that activities always equal results? No. But you're trying to, when I have 110 reps, I have to think like, usually and for the most part, more sales activities will lead to more sales results. Is that always the case? No. So it's really, again, dependent each one, but in general, we require a minimum of 200 activities a day, and that's email, LinkedIn, or phone outreach.
Yep. Yep. So Michael's asking about the types of solutions that this is working for, and I think he's asking about custom RPA. But I think the gist of the question is selling kind of custom solutions versus maybe products or platforms. I'll take this one first, maybe Andrew, and then jump in. I think I don't know if it matters if you're selling custom or a platform or a product. I think it's what you alluded to before. I think it's about the solution. What's the outcome that your customer will get as a result of working with you? I have a customer right now, a member right now that we're doing this for. They're actually they're a software development company that's really turned into more of a platform company. And they thought that, hey, going from custom to platform would be better. But as Andrew alluded to before, if you're still selling kind of features, that's not going to really resonate as much as if you're selling outcomes, right? So I think the move is to sell the outcome, solve the problem that the customer is facing. And then once you get the call, the meeting, then you get into what's under the hood and how you do it. And hey, we can change it and tweak it. I need to know more about the offering to be sure, but that's my general advice. Andrew, you agree?
I would agree 100%. People care about solving their problems. They don't care about, as long as it's really about like I wouldn't, as long, if you're in business, it means that you solve somebody's problem. Usually that means you either made them or saved them money. So try to boil it down to how your thing, whatever it is, if it's a service, if it's a product, how does it make them or save them money? That's what people care about. Business is about money. So there you
Yep.
go. Like if
Yep.
you figure it, boil it all down to that. If you learn nothing else on this webinar, that's a pro tip. Like boil it down to how you make or save them money, and you'll be way ahead of the game.
Great advice. Andrew, thank you so much. We're about out of
Hey, thank
time.
you.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to see if I can talk you into maybe a part two or even a part three. I
Anytime,
think
man.
this is a
Happy to
good
do it. It was
series.
really fun. Thanks, and thank you,
Um,
man. Thank
I
everybody.
need more of this. Yeah, thank you, buddy. We need more of this, I think, on our membership. And again, if you're looking for outsourced SDRs, you want to give this a try. Andrew's offering this up very, very reasonable. If you've ever tried to hire resources, certainly sales resources, certainly in the US. And if you're looking for something that's more automation AI specific, and you want to work with us to, reach out to folks that are, already coming to us for advice. It's kind of more of a matchmaking program than an SDR program, but we're having these conversations with members. Love to talk to you more about whether you'd be a good fit for the program. And by the way, even if you just want to chat, if you want more of Andrew's advice, our advice from an automation AI standpoint, happy to chat with you. Andrew, thanks once
Thanks,
again, and
everybody.
have a great week, everybody.
You too. Take care, everybody. Thank you.